Now you are able to pull out the entire axle. Just come right out this hole. Give her a pull. See the U-joint comes out. And this whole guy is right here. So you can see you got a short side to your axle, and then over there, that big old guy is a long side of the axle, because the differential is not in the middle of the axle, it's offset. Yeah, so short side, long side of housing, short side of housing. Really important note is that if you're working on, if you're using this as like a reference for, you know, a different axle, maybe even just like a Dana 44 or something like that, a lot of the times the axle right here will have like a C-clip thing on it that keeps it in the differential. So you can't just pull it straight out like I did. That's the difference between like a full floating axle versus a semi-floating axle versus a locked axle, maybe they call it. I don't know what they call it. But anyways, so you'll have to pop this cover off to get in to pull the little clips out so that you can slide the axle out of the housing. So you don't want to just pull on that and then have it not come and then just yank on it until the clip breaks off, and then you have a broken clip inside of here that you need to find somehow. So yeah, so that can be a little bit of more of a pain with like a semi-floating axle. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but a problem you're going to run into is that your socket is too fat to fit against this wall. So you could either find an open end wrench, put a breaker bar on it, yada yada yada, or you can just kind of wrestle this guy on here and tap it on. This way works, but you might bend this little housing a little bit, but I ordered a new cap for it anyway, so don't really matter for me. But you know, if you're planning on using the same cap, then watch out. So as you get these nuts out, you're going to feel this guy is probably going to be expanding and pushing off of the knuckle because there's a spring in here. So just a ton of axle grease, and this is the bushing right here, this ring, and there's your spring. When you pull it off, the spring might stay on top of the knuckle or might be a little bit in here. But anyways, just 4 19mm bolts. You know, the socket trick might work, but if you got the patience, I recommend just going with the hand wrench. That's what worked for me in the long run. So this grease zerk, once you get all the guck off of it, does twist out, so you can clean that all out, sand it down, or just pull the grease zerk out and put it into a new cap. So after prying on this guy a little bit, you can see that it's actually broken. So, which is kind of good. I mean, if you're going to all this work to replace it, you'd kind of hope it's broken. Kind of having trouble getting the screwdriver in here to pry on it. But just play around with it until you get it out. It's probably going to be messy because of all this grease. Alright, so flip the thing over to the lower side of the kingpin. These are all still going to be 19mm. I just used a regular hand wrench with the big ass bar. Yeah, so get at it. So really quick, just so you can see this before I nail it out. There's a 36mm socket sitting on top of the lower kingpin. Goes up, this bar comes through the upper kingpin hole, and then put some type of pad or something on the end of this guy and smack her out. Like I said, I'm sure there's a much less like tool damaging way to do this. And there you go. There's your little ring. It's probably pretty hot. Heated it up pretty good. But that's what it looks like. Alright, I know you guys are going to hate me for skipping steps. Here's the knuckle off of the dealio. Anyways, this kingpin right here, this is what it looks like. This is the bad guy that's sitting in here. The torque spec for fitting this in here is 500 foot-pounds. To break it free,
you're gonna need probably more than 700 foot-pounds. I put this gigantic Snap-on 3/4 inch drive breaker bar on, and then I put a cheater bar on top of that. I put a torque wrench on it, 3/4 inch before that, and it clicked at 650 before it break free. So I don't really know how much power I put on it, but it had to be at least 700, maybe more. This little guy is from East Coast Gear Supply. It's a 7/8 piece of just like hex tube. Slides in the top, and you just crank it until it breaks off. I heated it before I tried to break it free, so it's a monster. Anyways, you'll break it out, it'll just pop, and then you'll be able to twist it out pretty easy. Then the lower kingpin is out. So don't try to beat this out like I did from the outside. What you're gonna wanna do is, if you can, get this kingpin out, slip the knuckle off, and then you can push, once you have these 4 bolts out, you can just push this out. I had to beat on it with a hammer. I mean, I definitely ruined it when I beat it out, which is fine because I was planning on replacing it anyway. So that's the option. Don't just hammer it from the outside and destroy and cut it up and whatnot, because that's what I did over there, and don't do that. So anyways, once you slide the knuckle off, you see you got, oh, let me see if I can turn my light on. Once you get the knuckle off, here's the lower, and this little ring will slide off. Slide might be an overstatement. There you go. So here is the bearing and the little ring that sits underneath it. That whole thing comes off. And then here is your lower kingpin. And I just beat it with a sledgehammer until it popped out after you got these off. And that'll come out and you'll replace that. Here's the orientation. So it goes on the axle just like it's laying right now. There's the lower kingpin, upper, lower, upper, slides on, bar goes in front of the differential. Yep. Alright, back at it. Here's the lower kingpin piece. That is the race ring, or race as they call it, that's sitting in there. And then this cap is on the other side. This guy sits inside of here when you pull it out. And that kingpin, let's see if I can zoom in. That guy sitting over there on the other side of the shop is what sits in the center of it all, and then bolts up into the knuckle. I'm sure if you went to some diesel driveline whatever place, they would have a much less ghetto way to do this. But the only way I found I could get it out was by heating it up and then taking a rather large socket. Took this guy right here, which is a 36 millimeter, which fits into the top of this guy pretty decently, and pounding the hell out of it. You can probably find better ways to do it than the way I did it. What I'm about to do, I already did it on the other side, is I punch through this, because that's just like really thin, like little tin. I punch through it with the end of this guy, make a hole, and then I drive this guy through here like that, and then I have it sticking out the end, because the end of this is a little bit too big to fit through the upper kingpin, and I hammer the shit out of it with a big old hammer. The YouTube watcher watching this is probably a little bit less of a ghetto backyard mechanic than I am, and could figure out a better way to do this, but that's what works for me.